The trees of Aokigahara stand like silent sentinels, their thick, gnarled branches stretching toward the sky in a tangled embrace. Even in the daylight, the forest is unnervingly quiet, as if the world outside its borders has faded away. The ground, uneven and littered with volcanic rock, swallows footsteps, muffling every sound. Birds do not sing here. The wind does not stir the branches. It is a place of unnatural stillness, a place where the living are not welcome. At the base of Mount Fuji, Aokigahara Forest has long been associated with death. It is known worldwide as Japan's infamous suicide forest, where hundreds of people have taken their own lives. The weight of their sorrow lingers in the air, heavy and inescapable. But what many do not realize is that Aokigahara's darkness stretches far beyond modern tragedies. This place has been cursed by death for centuries, long before it became known as a suicide destination. During Japan's feudal era, when famine swept through the land and families struggled to survive, an unthinkable practice emerged: yubasut, the abandonment of the elderly and the sick. When food was scarce, families were faced with impossible choices: either starve together or sacrifice those deemed weakest. In desperation, some carried their aging parents or ailing relatives deep into the forest, leaving them to perish alone. Some elders went willingly, understanding their fate, while others wept and pleaded to stay. But once left in the thick, unyielding woods, there was no escape. For those who wandered Aokigahara in their final hours, the suffering was unimaginable. They called out for help, their voices swallowed by the dense forest, their bodies succumbing to starvation, exposure, or madness. And when death finally came, it did not bring peace. Their restless souls were said to remain in the forest, trapped between life and the afterlife, forever lost among the trees. Even today, visitors claim that the spirits of the abandoned still linger. Hikers report feeling unseen eyes watching them from the shadows. Some hear whispers, faint, sorrowful voices calling out in the wind, urging them to leave the path, to step deeper into the trees, to join them. Others feel an overwhelming sense of dread, as if something unseen lurks just behind them, waiting. For those who enter Aokigahara with no intention of self-harm, the forest still finds ways to unsettle them. Compasses spin wildly, disrupted by the high iron content in the volcanic soil. GPS devices malfunction, leaving hikers disoriented and lost. Even the most experienced travelers find themselves walking in circles, as if the forest itself conspires to trap them. Some describe a sudden, crushing sadness overtaking them, a deep despair that makes them feel as if they do not belong in the world outside the trees. Others feel an invisible force pulling them forward, deeper into the silence. But the spirits of the long-forgotten are not the only souls haunting Aokigahara. The modern tragedies that have made this forest infamous have added to its darkness. Every year, dozens, sometimes hundreds, of people enter the woods to end their lives. Some leave behind notes, messages scrawled onto tree trunks, or paper signs pleading for someone to find them. Others bring tents, camping for days before making their final decision. When search teams comb the forest, they often find chilling remnants of these final moments: abandoned belongings, neatly folded clothes, footprints that lead nowhere. One searcher, a former officer who volunteers to retrieve bodies, once spoke of an experience that left him shaken. He had come across a man's remains, an old skeleton half buried beneath a tangle of roots. As he prepared to transport the body, he felt an overwhelming sense of unease, as if something was standing directly behind him. When he turned, there was nothing there. But as he lifted the skeleton, he swore he heard a whisper right in his ear: "Leave me here." Many who enter Aokigahara alone do not return. Their bodies are later found hanging from trees, hidden among the undergrowth, or lying at the base of rocky outcroppings where they took their final steps. Yet some are never found at all, as if the forest itself has swallowed them whole. Authorities have placed signs along the entrance paths, urging visitors to reconsider. Messages pleading with them to think of their families, to reach out for help, to choose life instead. But for some, the pull of Aokigahara is stronger than any warning. The spirits that dwell here are said to be yurei, ghosts trapped in a limbo between life and death, consumed by the sorrow and suffering of their final moments. These spirits do not rest, nor do they welcome the living into their domain. Some visitors speak of seeing pale, shadowy figures drifting between the trees, their faces obscured, their movements unnatural. Others hear footsteps crunching in the underbrush behind them, only to turn and find nothing there. The deeper one goes into Aokigahara, the stranger the experiences become. Hikers recall seeing figures in the distance, watching them, only for these figures to vanish without a trace. Some report hearing laughter, soft, childlike giggles that seem to come from nowhere. Others hear crying, deep and guttural, as if someone is mourning just beyond their sight. And then there are those who enter the forest and emerge changed. A young man once visited Aokigahara out of curiosity, skeptical of the ghost stories. He wandered through the trees, taking pictures, marveling at the silence. But as he walked, he began to feel different. His thoughts grew dark, heavy. He couldn't understand why, but a wave of hopelessness washed over him, stronger than anything he had ever felt. It was as if the forest itself was pressing into his mind, whispering thoughts that were not his own. He turned back, fighting the urge to sit down and never move again. When he finally reached the edge of the forest, the feeling lifted as suddenly as it had come. He left shaken, unable to explain what had happened, but knowing, without a doubt, that something inside Aokigahara had tried to keep him there. There are many stories like his, people who go in laughing, confident only to emerge pale and silent, their eyes haunted by something they cannot name. Some never speak of their experience again. Others refuse to ever return. Aokigahara is not like other forests. It is a place where the past lingers, where sorrow seeps into the very soil. The spirits of those abandoned long ago still wander its depths, joined now by the lost souls of the modern age. And for those who step between the trees, the question is not whether the forest is haunted. The question is whether it will let them leave. The Cecil Hotel stands tall in downtown Los Angeles, an aging relic of a city that has seen both glamour and despair. What was once meant to be a luxurious destination for travelers in the 1920s quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. A magnet for crime, death, and eerie occurrences, the Cecil has gained a reputation as one of the most haunted hotels in the world. Its halls have been home to suicides, murders, and some of the most infamous criminals in history. Many believe the hotel is cursed, its dark energy drawing in those who are already lost, turning them into victims, or even monsters. Perhaps the most infamous case linked to the Cecil Hotel is that of Elisa Lam. In 2013, the 21-year-old Canadian student vanished without a trace while staying at the hotel. Her disappearance puzzled authorities, but it was a piece of security footage that truly unsettled the world. The video, taken from inside an elevator, showed Lam behaving strangely, pressing multiple buttons, peeking out into the hallway as if she was being followed, and making erratic hand gestures as though she were communicating with someone unseen. Then she simply disappeared. Weeks later, after guests complained of foul-smelling, discolored water, her decomposing body was found in one of the rooftop water tanks. The mystery surrounding her death deepened when investigators realized that accessing the tanks was nearly impossible without triggering alarms or having the strength to open the heavy lids. How had she ended up inside? Was it a tragic accident, foul play, or something more supernatural? Elisa Lam's case may be the most well-known, but it is far from the only tragedy to take place at the Cecil Hotel. Since the 1930s, the building has been the site of numerous suicides. So many guests have leaped from its windows that people began referring to it as the Suicide Hotel. Some ingested poison, others hanged themselves, and many left no explanation at all. One of the most disturbing incidents occurred in 1962, when Pauline Otten, a young woman distraught over a failed marriage, jumped from her ninth-floor window. Tragically, she landed on an unsuspecting pedestrian below, killing them both instantly. Beyond suicides, the hotel has been home to some of the most dangerous individuals to walk the streets of Los Angeles. In the 1980s, Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker, lived at the Cecil during his killing spree. Ramirez, a brutal serial killer and self-proclaimed Satanist, would return to his room covered in blood after committing unspeakable crimes. The hotel's low rates and anonymity provided him with a perfect hideout. Some say that Ramirez's presence left a permanent stain on the building, his evil energy feeding the darkness already festering within. Years later, in the 1990s, another serial killer checked into the Cecil. Jack Unterweger, an Austrian murderer posing as a journalist. While staying at the hotel, he continued his killing spree, targeting sex workers and strangling them with their own brass. The Cecil, it seemed, did not just attract evil, it nurtured it. Even those who came to the Cecil with no intention of harming themselves or others often left with unsettling stories. Guests have reported shadowy figures lurking in their rooms, disembodied whispers echoing through the halls, and eerie sensations of being watched. Some have claimed to wake up unable to move, paralyzed by an unseen force pressing down on them. Others have seen ghostly apparitions reflected in mirrors, only to turn around and find nothing there. Paranormal investigators who have explored the Cecil describe an overwhelming sense of dread upon entering. Some report sudden nausea, while others hear voices whispering their names. One investigator captured an EVP recording of a voice hissing, "Get out," while another felt an icy handbrush against his neck. The hotel's dark history seems to have left an imprint, a lingering energy that refuses to be ignored. Certain rooms at the Cecil are believed to be more haunted than others. Room 1402, for example, has been the site of multiple suicides. Guests who have spent the night there claim to feel an oppressive force weighing down on them. Some wake up gasping for breath, as if an invisible presence is pressing on their chest. Others have reported waking up to see a dark figure standing at the foot of their bed, only to have it vanish when they turn on the lights. With so much tragedy embedded in its walls, it is no surprise that many believe the Cecil is more than just haunted. It is cursed. Some speculate that the land itself harbors dark energy, feeding off the suffering of those who pass through. Others suggest that the hotel is a beacon for lost souls, a place where the dead linger, unable or unwilling to move on. In an attempt to shake off its dark reputation, the Cecil Hotel was rebranded as Stay on Main in the 2010s. The management tried to attract younger, budget-conscious travelers, distancing themselves from the hotel's macabre past. But the ghosts of the Cecil cannot be erased so easily. Even after the rebranding, stories of hauntings and eerie experiences continued. The hotel has since been closed for renovations, with plans to transform it into affordable housing. But many wonder, can a place so steeped in death and misery ever truly be reborn? Some believe that no matter what changes are made, the darkness within the Cecil will remain. There is an undeniable pattern to the tragedies at the Cecil Hotel. It is not just a place where bad things have happened. It is a place where bad things keep happening. The suicides, the murders, the disappearances, all of it adds up to something more than just coincidence. Whether cursed or simply the product of its grim history, the hotel's legacy is one that refuses to be forgotten. Those who have spent time within its walls often leave changed, haunted not just by what they have seen, but by what they felt. A sense of being watched, a whisper in the dark, a shadow that should not be there. Some who have stayed at the Cecil claim to have experienced nightmares for weeks after leaving, plagued by visions of ghostly figures and suffocating darkness. Others report feeling an overwhelming urge to return, as if the hotel itself calls to them. For now, the Cecil remains closed to the public, its rooms empty, its halls silent. But for those who believe in the supernatural, the hotel is far from abandoned. They say the spirits of the Cecil Hotel are still there, waiting. Some are victims, forever trapped in the place where they met their tragic end. Others are something far more sinister, entities that have always been there, feeding off the fear and despair of those who enter. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. The Cecil Hotel is not just another haunted location. It is a place where the past refuses to die, where the line between the living and the dead is blurred. And for those who dare to enter, the question is not if they will experience something unexplainable. It is when. Poveglia Island sits just off the coast of Venice, shrouded in mist and mystery. Though it appears like any other quiet, uninhabited island, its past is anything but ordinary. Known as one of the most haunted places in the world, Poveglia is a place of unimaginable suffering, a land where the sick were left to die, where the mentally ill were subjected to horrifying treatments, and where the very soil is said to be tainted with the ashes of the dead. Few dare to set foot on its cursed ground, and those who do rarely leave without experiencing something terrifying. The island's dark history stretches back centuries. In the 18th century, during the height of the bubonic plague, Poveglia became a quarantine zone for those infected. Thousands of men, women, and children were forcibly sent there, ripped from their homes, and loaded onto death ships bound for the island. There was no treatment, no hope, only suffering. Once on Poveglia, the sick were left to rot in makeshift hospitals, their bodies piling up as the disease consumed them. As more and more victims arrived, the island's caretakers resorted to burning the corpses in mass graves, filling the air with the acrid stench of death. Some say that even those who were still alive were thrown into the fires, their cries of agony lost in the chaos. The horror of Poveglia did not end with the plague. Centuries later, in the early 20th century, the island was repurposed as a mental asylum. The facility was meant to house those deemed insane, but rather than offer treatment, it became a place of torment. Patients spoke of dark figures watching them from the corners of their rooms, whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, and shadows that moved on their own. Their fears were ignored by the doctors, who dismissed their claims as delusions. But soon, even the staff began to report unsettling experiences. Objects moving by themselves, chilling voices in the empty hallways, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. The asylum's most infamous figure was its lead doctor, a man whose name has been lost to history, but whose cruelty remains well known. He was obsessed with lobotomies, performing them using crude, primitive tools. Patients were subjected to torturous procedures, holes drilled into their skulls, their brains prodded with sharp instruments, their screams echoing through the halls. Many never survived, their bodies discarded without a second thought. The doctor believed that his experiments were revolutionary, that he was unlocking the secrets of the human mind. But others whispered that he had gone mad, consumed by the darkness that haunted Poveglia. His reign of terror ended in a way as horrific as the crimes he committed. According to legend, the doctor began to experience the same hallucinations that had plagued his patients. He spoke of seeing ghostly figures, of hearing the tortured screams of the souls he had mutilated. His paranoia grew until, one night, he climbed to the top of the hospital's bell tower and threw himself off. Some say he survived the fall, lying broken on the ground, only to be dragged away by the very spirits he had tormented. Others claim that his body simply vanished, as if the island itself had consumed him. After the asylum closed, Poveglia was abandoned. Locals in Venice refused to go near it, speaking of strange lights flickering in the darkness, of screams carried across the water by the wind. Fishermen who dared to cast their nets near the island would sometimes pull up human bones instead of fish. Over time, stories of hauntings became so widespread that the government officially banned visitors, leaving the island to rot in isolation. Despite the warnings, some have dared to step foot on Poveglia, drawn by curiosity or the hope of proving the legends false. Most regret their decision. Tourists who have secretly ventured onto the island describe an overwhelming sense of dread upon arrival, as if an invisible force is watching them. Many have reported sudden, unexplained nausea and dizziness. Some have heard whispers in their ears, begging for help in voices that sound inhuman. One group of paranormal investigators managed to capture chilling evidence of Poviglia's hauntings as they explored the ruins of the asylum. Their equipment picked up disembodied voices, faint but unmistakable. One recording featured a desperate whisper, "They burned us." Another voice, deeper and more menacing, hissed a single word, "Leave." The investigators did not need further convincing. They fled the island, never returning. The most terrifying encounters, however, happen at night. Those who have attempted to camp on Poveglia claim to have seen shadowy figures moving among the ruins, their forms barely visible in the moonlight. Some have awoken to find deep scratches on their bodies, as if something unseen had attacked them in their sleep. A few have even reported being physically shoved or held down by an invisible force, unable to breathe until they manage to escape. The island itself seems to reject the living. Over the years, several attempts have been made to reclaim Poveglia, to turn it into something useful, a vineyard, a luxury resort, even a park. Every attempt has failed. Construction crews reported tools going missing, sudden equipment failures, and workers suffering from disturbing nightmares. Some refused to return to the island after their first day, swearing that they had felt something lurking just behind them, unseen but undeniably there. Today, Poveglia remains off-limits. Though it is technically owned by the Italian government, no one dares to develop the land. Even those who do not believe in ghosts admit that something about the island is deeply unsettling. Perhaps it is the weight of its history, the knowledge that tens of thousands of people suffered and died there. Or perhaps the stories are true, and the spirits of the damned still wander its ruins, waiting for the next foolish soul to step onto their cursed ground. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: Poveglia is not just another abandoned island. It is a place where the past refuses to rest, where the echoes of suffering still linger in the air. Those who have been there describe it as more than haunted. It is wrong, a place where the living are not welcome. For now, Poveglia sits in silence, its crumbling buildings standing as a grim reminder of its history. But those who listen carefully, even from the safety of Venice's shores, say that on certain nights, when the wind is just right, you can still hear the screams. The Myrtles Plantation stands in eerie silence, its grand facade hiding a grim history of suffering, betrayal, and restless spirits. Located in Street Francisville, Louisiana, the house has gained a reputation as one of the most haunted homes in America, a place where the past refuses to fade. While ghost stories often center around tragic events that history has well documented, the true horror of the Myrtles Plantation may lie in the secrets that were never fully recorded, souls forgotten by time but unwilling to be ignored. Built in 1796, the plantation has seen centuries of bloodshed and sorrow. Official records note several violent deaths on the property, but whispers of unmarked graves and undocumented tragedies suggest the actual number may be much higher. The most infamous ghost of the Myrtles is Chloe, a former enslaved woman whose story has become deeply woven into the plantation's legend. According to local tales, Chloe was owned by Judge Clark Woodruff, the master of the house. Some say she became his unwilling mistress, forced into a life she could not escape. Others claim she was caught eavesdropping on a private conversation and, as punishment, had one of her ears cut off, a grotesque reminder of the power imbalance that defined life on the plantation. Seeking revenge, or perhaps simply out of desperation, Chloe is said to have poisoned the family's food with oleander, a toxic plant. Whether she intended to kill or merely make them sick is unknown, but the results were fatal. Woodruff's wife and two of their children died, their bodies quickly buried, their deaths hushed to avoid scandal. When the truth was discovered, Chloe was dragged from the house by the other enslaved workers, hanged from a tree, and left to rot as a warning to others. The story of Clo is widely known, but many historians question its accuracy. No official records confirm her existence, yet visitors to the Myrtles plantation claim to have seen a woman in a green turban, Clo's supposed trademark, wandering the halls at night. Some have even captured ghostly images and photographs, figures standing in doorways where no one should be. Clo is far from the only spirit that lingers within the house. Guests have reported hearing children's laughter echoing through empty rooms, only to find no one there. Others have witnessed shadowy figures moving near the grand staircase, disappearing the moment they are approached. The piano, untouched for years, sometimes plays by itself in the dead of night, sending chills down the spines of those brave enough to listen. Perhaps the most terrifying encounters involve the plantation's infamous mirror. According to legend, when the Woodruff family died, their spirits became trapped within a large mirror in the home. It is said that if you stare into the glass for too long, you may see their reflection beside your own, watching, waiting. Fingerprints appear on the mirror's surface, even when no one has touched it, and some visitors have claimed to see the faint outlines of faces peering out from within the glass. Not all hauntings at the Myrtles plantation stem from a single ghost story. Over the years, researchers have uncovered disturbing patterns, evidence of deaths and disappearances that were never officially documented. The plantation, like many of its time, was built on the suffering of enslaved people whose lives were seen as disposable. Many were buried in unmarked graves, their names erased from history. Some believe that their spirits remain trapped, seeking recognition, justice, or simply peace. Paranormal investigators who have spent nights at the plantation describe an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the house itself is alive with sorrow. Their equipment has captured strange voices whispering in the darkness, soft but unmistakable. One chilling recording features a hushed voice pleading, "Help me." Another investigator, alone in one of the bedrooms, reported feeling a cold hand grasp her shoulder, only to turn around and find nothing there. The Myrtles plantation has undergone many changes over the years. It has served as a private home, an inn, and a tourist attraction. Despite these transformations, its hauntings have only grown more intense. Those who stay overnight often leave with stories of doors opening on their own, phantom footsteps pacing outside their rooms, and an eerie sense of being watched. Even skeptics, those who enter the house expecting nothing but folklore, often leave shaken, unwilling to explain what they have experienced. The plantation's current owners have embraced its haunted reputation, offering ghost tours to thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. But some wonder if continuing to exploit the house's tragic history only strengthens its hauntings. After all, if the spirits of the Myrtles plantation are truly the souls of those wronged in life, would they not still be seeking justice? Perhaps the most unsettling thought is that the full story of the Myrtles plantation has yet to be uncovered. With every investigation, every eerie sighting, new pieces of its dark past come to light. How many more victims remain unheard? How many more spirits linger in the shadows, waiting for someone to acknowledge their pain? The Myrtles plantation stands as both a relic of the past and a haunting reminder of the horrors that once took place within its walls. While it is one of America's most infamous haunted houses, it is also a symbol of the suffering that history often tries to forget. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, one thing is certain: the house is not at peace, and perhaps it never will be.